A public hearing of Board of Trustees of Judson ISD is being held on February 18, 2016, beginning at 6:30 p.m. The subject to be discussed or considered upon which any formal action may be taken are included below. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown in the meeting below. Let's take roll call. Mr. Salinas.
Present, sir.
Ms. Pashaw.
Here.
Mr. LaFoil.
I'm here.
Dr. Salinas.
Here.
Steve Salyer, I'm present, and Dr. Montoya.
Present.
Okay, Texas Academic Performance Report. Dr. Montoya.
Okay, members of the board, the Texas Academic Performance Report is an annual report that we submit data to the state, and we do have to have a general hearing and share it with the public, and it covers various areas. Obviously, the report itself, accreditation, student performance, violent and criminal incidents, campus performance objectives, and the PEIMS financial standard report. So it's got several pieces, but we'll go ahead and do the presentation. Ms. Austin, if you want to go ahead and start.
Yes, we have Rebecca Deffenbaugh is going to present the Texas Academic Performance Report, the annual report, to the board.
Good evening. The Texas Academic Report is the TAPER acronym report. We are, like Dr. Montoya just said, we are required to present that as a public hearing 90 days from being disseminated from the state. After tonight, we have 2 weeks to publish this report on our district website and at our campuses for people who do not have access to the internet. This report does include several areas, which is the TAPER report itself, our district accreditation status, also information from post-secondary readiness areas, report on violent and criminal incidences, campus performance objectives, and the PEIMS financial standard report has already actually been presented to the board for our financial officer. What the report does contain, it does have the district information as far as how students do his graduation rate, our STAR assessments, also have student information in regards to our demographics, and staff information as well. In addition to the TAPER report, we're also required to have a hearing to hold additional pieces to inform the public. One of them has to do with our accreditation status. This is new into the report. This one simply says that every public school has to be accredited in order to function. They take our first rating, which is our financial rating, plus our accountability standard from the state, put it together and determine whether we're accredited or not. And we did receive an accreditation standard. In addition to that, we also have to talk about our 2015 state accountability rating. We received a MET standard rating for the district. That is the highest rating the district can receive. In addition, all our campuses, every single one of them received a MET standard rating as well. We did have one campus who received a MET alternative standard, and that is our JLA, because they're rated on a different platform than our other campuses. Below you see the actual performance index report, where you see the green arrows show where the cutoff point was, and you can see we're well above the state cutoff points. Because our campuses did receive a MET standard rating, they were all eligible to receive a distinction. They are compared against 40 comparable campuses just like them, and they compete in the area of achievement in reading/ELA, mathematics, science, and social studies. They had to receive 50% of those indicators in order to receive a distinction, or for high school, they had to have 33% of those indicators. The other one is top 25 student progress, and that has to do with the students making gains from one year to the next. And then closing the performance gap. That is how our campus's economically disadvantaged students are doing against our 2 lowest performing subpops. And then finally, our post-secondary readiness. This area has several pieces in it. It has how students are doing on our SAT test, how students may have received an advanced level in one of the areas above math, reading, science, or social studies. We had 18 campuses receive 1 or more distinction, and we had 2 elementary campuses receive all 5 eligible distinctions. Now, technically there are 6 distinctions, but math, grade 3 through 8, was not included in state accountability, so therefore they could only receive 5. This is a breakdown matrix of how many campuses we actually had receive a distinction. For elementary, it tells, if you look across the board, we had 5 campuses that received an ELA distinction, 2 for science, 10 for post-secondary readiness, closing the performance gap 6, and post-secondary readiness 4. So this gives you an idea of where our campuses are performing. Any grayed out area shows that there was not an eligible indicator for last year, which have to be math, and there is not a test in social studies for elementary. Additional part of the TAPER report has to do with House Bill 5, Community and Student Engagement Report. This is a local accountability system that the state requires that we look at the categories below that are presented above and determine how we rate ourselves as a district. Each campus had to do the same based on the criteria that was used. Overall rating for Judson ISD was recognized, and we are in compliance. And then finally, House Bill 5 has to do with our EOC remediation effectiveness. Each student who does not pass an end-of-course assessment is required or is allowed to receive remediation prior to retesting in the next administration. Here you'll see summer of 2014, fall of 2014, and spring of 2015. Those are actually our accountability subject groups that are used in the TAPER report. Now, you do notice in the spring of 2015, we do take a drop in English 1 and English 2, and that is due to the redesigning of that test. So those students had to take a new test they didn't have to take before. It was redesigned into one test instead of two. Now, moving on into the TAPER report, gives us demographic information for our students. We've increased about 364 students since last year, and our percent of economically disadvantaged students has decreased about 7.2%. We have increased the number of ELL learners, and the number of students are at risk. As you can see, this is a comparison against the state, how we are doing. Our ethnic distribution is shown. As you can see, we're a very diverse district, and we continue to grow. These are the number of students enrolled by grade level. As you can see, last year, the number of students in 9th grade was a peak where we had most students enrolled in the district. And below tells you the percent of students actually enrolled in special programs. That includes bilingual, career and technology, gifted and talented, and special ed. Our populations in those areas continue to grow. We did take a little dip in gifted and talented, but otherwise we're still showing growth in those programs. The staff information. This shows us the teachers by ethnicity, the number of teachers we have, and then percent of the overall population of those teachers. And on the right-hand side shows the number of experience of those teachers and percent as well. Now we'll start looking at the STAR information. On this graph, you will see that we have the STAR reading. In grades 3 through 8, students are tested in reading on the STAR assessment. In 5th and 8th grade, these students are given an opportunity to take the test more than one administration. They have 3 tries because 5th and 8th grade is required for students to pass reading in order to be promoted to the next grade level. So 5th and 8th grade show only the 1st and 2nd administration. The state allows 3, however, they only show 2 administrations for accountability. As you can see, we are above the state in some areas and right there with them in some of the lower grades. On the right-hand side, we have writing. Writing is only tested in grades 4 and 7. As you can see, we are either at or just comparable with the state. Next, we have science and social studies. Science is only tested in 5th and 8th grade. It's our comparison against the state. We're above the state in 8th grade science and a little below in 5th grade science. We knew that was going to happen. That's actually across several districts where that seemed to be an area of concern. And finally, we have social studies. Social studies only tested in 8th grade, and we're a little under the state in that area. However, there are things that have been put in place in order to ensure we'll do well on this next year. Including the STAR piece is the STAR end of course. These are students who took the EOC. And this has to do, if you notice on the bottom, this is our accountability subset. So this includes students from July 2014, December 2014, and spring of 2015. So as you can see, we are really comparable with the state in some areas above the state. Now we're looking at post-secondary readiness and advanced areas. The first one has to do with how many students are showing post-secondary readiness standard. This means these students are scoring on the final level of the STAR assessment in these categories. As you can see, Judson is comparable to the state. There are some areas of mathematics is only Algebra 1. Anytime you see math in any of these charts, it is only Algebra 1 because 3 through 8 was not included in this year's accountability. On the right-hand side, you see the advanced standard. That one shows the percent of students reaching the advanced level. This is comparable to back in tax day that used to be called commended. Next, we'll look at the progress measure. This one shows how much a student is making growth. These students may not necessarily have passed the test, however, they made gains from one year to the next. So the first chart shows the percent of students that met or exceeded progress in comparison to the state. The one on the right-hand side shows just the students that exceeded progress. These students scored well beyond the percentage point that the state decided was acceptable in order to receive MET. They were beyond that level. Next, we'll look at prior year STAR failures. These are students who in the previous year did not pass the STAR assessment, and this year they were successful in reading. And these are in grades 4 through 8. So as you can see in this area, we are increasing the number of students who are passing from one year to the next. The Student Success Initiative has to do with students in grades 5 and 8. And these are, once again, they are required to pass that assessment in reading and math. However, math was not part of accountability this year. So they are required to pass the reading assessment. They had 3 chances. The first one shows the number of students requiring accelerated instruction. And as you can see, we do have a little more students requiring accelerated instruction in 5th grade, and 8th grade really comparable with the state. On the right-hand side shows you how well those students did that required to take the test and pass it within the first and second administration combined. Next, we'll look at the students that did not pass. They had 3 chances to take the assessment. They still did not meet the standard, and they were placed into the next grade level by their committee. On the right-hand side shows, of those students that we placed, how well did those students do in the next year. So you can see in the amount of students we placed is less than the state. And on the right-hand side that we did place, they're doing well above the students in the state that were placed in the next grade level that were being successful. The next part has to do with our Bilingual ESL program, and this information is the same information you just saw for all students. However, the TAPER report just breaks it into those additional categories for you to see how those students are doing. It's the same information, the same test. First year we'll be looking at bilingual, which is service K through 5, and then we have ESL, which is K-12. The right-hand side of the graph shows you just ESL, and on the left-hand side will show you bilingual. And the side columns will show you how they're doing in those STAR assessments. Like I mentioned earlier, mathematics is just showing Algebra 1. The top is showing the percent that met the standard, and the bottom 2 are showing post-secondary readiness and the advanced level. Where you do not see a chart indicates that there were not enough students to be showed in that area. Once again, also, met progress, exceeded progress, and the percent of those students passing that failed the prior year. That concludes the STAR portion. The next part of these slides, I do want to remind you that these are based on not last year's data. These are based on the year prior. Attendance, dropout, post-secondary readiness is all based on the 2013-2014 school year, and that's something that the state has done. That's when they report information. So the first thing you're going to see is the attendance rate, and this is based on students only in 1st through 12th grade. The first one is the 2012 compared to the 2013, and then the 14-13 school year, how we did in comparison to the state. Below, you'll see the annual dropout rate. The annual dropout rate is reported in grades 7 through 8 and in grades 9 through 12. In this graph here, this is where we're below the state. This is one area you do want to be below the state in. We want to have less amount of students that are dropping out. Our next slide takes us to our graduation. This shows us our 4-year graduation longitudinal rate and our 5-year longitudinal graduation rate. This is the percent for the class of 2014, how many students graduated, received a GED, continued on to high school, or dropped out. And then our next one is the 5-year graduation. Same information. the four-year students who entered ninth grade in 2010, 2011, and then graduated with the class of 2014. And the 5-year had to do with students enrolled in 2009 to 2010, and then with the class of 2013. With the students that graduated, the state also breaks down how many of those students were on the recommended and distinguished plan. On the right-hand side, you will see the number of longitudinal rates, meaning the students who entered and finished together. And on the right-hand side shows the students anytime they just graduated, no matter when they enrolled in the district, they graduated that year. That is the annual rate. The next several slides have to do with college readiness indicators. And once again, these are also 2 years behind. This is the 2013-2014 school year. So this one shows that 50% of our students completed and received credit for at least one or more advanced or dual enrollment courses in grades 11 through 12. 33% of the students completed and received credit for at least one or more advanced or enrollment course in grades 9 through 12. And underneath that shows our AP and IB examination results. And these are only in students in grades 11 and 12 taking at least one examination. We had 9.5% of the students that were tested, and 51.6% of the students met or exceeded the exam criterion. College-ready graduates. The state has college-ready graduates as seen above. They have to meet the area in the matrix above in order to deem college readiness by the state for accountability. So these students have to meet either the exit level tax or the SAT score or the ACT score listed in the chart, and the math at the exit, ACT or ACT level. We had 50% of those students met the college readiness at the language arts, 57% for mathematics, and 42% for both subjects. In addition to being college ready with this criteria, the state included a college and career readiness graduates. So these students, same thing, but they had 3 ways to show it now. Number 1, they had to meet the criteria you just saw in the slide previous, or they could have completed and earned credit for at least 2 or more advanced or dual enrollment courses, or they could have been in a CT coherent sequence of part of a 4-year plan, or take 2 or more CT courses for 3 or more credits. And for the class of 2014, there were 73.6% that were college and career ready. This next slide shows us our SAT and ACT performance, how many % of our students were tested, how many scored above the criterion, and then the SAT class of 2014, what their average score was against the state's average score. The right-hand side, the SAT against the state's average score. Once again, this is also 13-14 school year data. Below that information, this one comes from the Texas Institute of Higher Education. And this is 2012-2013 data. And that's what they put forth. So they're saying 52.1% of our graduates enrolled in a Texas institution of higher education. And it says 57.3% of those did not require having to be remediated in that 1 year. It's an additional report by the College Higher Coordinating Board, and this one has to do with the number of our students that graduated, how many there were. We had 1,321 students, and out of those students, how many attended a public university, how many attended a 2-year public college, and how many attended independent universities, and you have not found and not tracked. And this does not include any student who went outside the state. And this report shows the student graduated in 2013, but they didn't enroll in the fall of 2013. This is a year after. This is looking, the students are enrolled in fall of 2014. The next part of our TAPER report has to do with the campus performance objectives. These are embedded into the CIP, and those executive summaries were already approved by the board last month. And this is, all those are available on this website here if anyone would like to see that full in detail. And the last part of the annual report has to do with the violent and criminal incidences, where we're required to report the type and rate, and also what prevention and interventions we're providing. So first off, for the 14-15, and this is last year's data, 14-15, we had 323 violent or criminal incidences, and that is 139 less than last year. In the chart below, you'll see the comparable for 2012-13 to 2013-14, and then 2014-2015. So as you can see, there are areas here that we have worked to make sure we have decreased in those areas, especially our fighting and mutual combat has decreased, as well as the number of possession and controlled substances. So what is the district doing in order to ensure that we are decreasing our criminal and violent incidences? We have our crisis management plan, and with that requires a campus crisis management plan, a student code of conduct, safety drills, periodic safety meetings with each campus crisis team. Our director of pupil services also meets with each campus management team at the beginning of the year to review and update them on policies and procedures. And also Harris County Safety Center periodically also conducts safety audits of our school and district facilities. We have a bullying allegations that are reported through an Alert Now system where anyone can report any harassment, and that information is sent to our Director of Pupil Services and the Executive Director of Student Support Services, who then investigate any allegations made. And then we also have a Raptor system. This one allows us to scan any licensed student who comes into a person who comes onto our campus to ensure that we are not letting individuals that should not be on our campus that pose a threat to our students and staff. And finally, we've adopted the student code of conduct that sets forth those rules, and the students should uphold an order and the consequences that are not that. The students, the possible outcomes do they not follow the rules set in the student code of conduct. So that concludes the annual presentation for the CAPER report. It is located on the district website. It is also located in hard copy for those who do not have internet access. It will be available at Woodlake Hills Middle School, Hopkins Elementary, and in the front lobby here at the ERC.
Thank you. Any questions? Dr. Salinas?
I mentioned, thank you, Ms. Steffenbaugh, you did an excellent job. I mentioned this, I believe, when we first reviewed our data, early data, maybe June or July. If we could please provide the board with the raw scores, because it's very deceiving when you see EOC scores, and our biology one is 94%, but the raw score is 20 questions, or 20 out of 52. So
No,
if you could
absolutely.
provide that for us, so that way we at least understand the data a little bit better,
Okay.
that would be great. And I think also to provide that on the website.
Anyone else? Mr. Salinas?
On the student information, number of students enrolled in district by grade level. On the 12th grade, 1,093. Was that for the 2014-15 year? And that includes JECA, is that correct? In other words, this is the 3 high schools.
Oh, this includes everyone that's in the district.
That is what?
It includes everybody, all our campuses.
But on the seniors, I'm talking about the seniors only, that all the 3 high schools.
Yes.
Oh, that includes JLA, right? Okay. Oh. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? Thank you, ma'am. Very nice. Appreciate it. This meeting's adjourned at 6:55. We'll be back in 5 minutes.